Hi, Mrs. Truman here again. Today we're going to look at a language question and we're going to be focusing on paper 1 and one of the most recent language papers, which was June 2019, which is last summer's series of exams. We're going to be looking at question 2 today, all right, and ultimately how to plan a response. I will then take you through in another video how to then write and craft an example response, and then hopefully you'll be able to go away and have a go at that yourself. So first of all, we're going to look at how to approach the question. Now remember, when you're in that exam, you must understand the question first. If you don't understand the question, you're not going to respond to it correctly. And you would have been taught over your time at Farringdon how we plan for that, and we start with highlighting the key points of the question. So first of all, it says look in detail at the extract from lines 6 to 12. Now for this question on this paper, you're actually given those lines, okay? In paper 2 question 3, you're not actually given those lines, all right? You'll have to identify them in the text, but in this instance, we are provided with them. We then get an example, which we're going to read shortly, and then we get the question which follows underneath. And the question we're going to be focused on is, how does the writer use language to describe the hardtop family? So key points would be how writer use language to describe in the hardtop family. Now this word describe is important, all right? When we're thinking about the word describe, we can think about how they are presented by the writer. We can talk about our impressions of them. We can talk about our thoughts about them. We can talk about our opinions. But ultimately, it's how the writer does that. So what methods does the writer use to describe? And those methods can be anything such as words or phrases. So we could be looking at adjectives, verbs, nouns, adverbs. We can also look at language features and techniques. So perhaps any metaphors which are in there, any similes, and personification, any repetition. Anything like that would do. And the last one is sentence forms, and we should know by now that sentence forms is one that we don't tend to focus on, as it is a little bit harder, and actually you can get the marks from commenting on the top 2 bullet points. Okay, so I'm going to read the example to us, and as we're reading, I'm going to be reading the extract with the question in mind. So all I'm going to do is, as I'm reading, is highlight the key points which are linking to that question. So it says hardtop, so we know hardtop is a character, okay? We'll have to work out obviously who he is within that family, but we will once we read, but we know he's a character. So hardtop was driving, and he was a thin, angular man, starved face. He seemed to occupy almost all of the seat, sprawling awkwardly, so that his wife and their daughter Alice had sat squeezed up. I'm just going to highlight White and Alice there because that's what it links to. The girl with her arms flat as though ironed against her chest, her thin legs pressed tight together into the size of one. The hard-topped faces seemed moulded in clay, and in the light from the van lamps were flat Swede colour. Like the man, the 2 women were thin, with a screwed-up thinness that made them look both hard and frightened. Again, I'm going to highlight screwed-up thinness, and I'm going to look up hard and frightened. Now I've highlighted a lot there, all right? Now we should know by now that actually in terms of what I've highlighted, I am going to try and minimise that down to 3 examples. And I'm going to try and focus on the 3 that I feel I can explain the most, and you should be doing the same. Don't try and just choose the 3 that you think the examiner would want you to respond to. Choose the 3 that you would be able to examine and go into detail about. So first of all, I'm going to be looking at this adjective of thin. And for me, we can actually see that the adjective of thin is repeated. And that's important, okay, because actually what it shows is that it's used to describe each family member. So all I'm going to do is just a little arrow linking them all together, and I'm going to talk about it up the top, and I'm going to talk about this as number 1. All right, so I'm going to put repetition of the adjective to describe each family member. And the impression, therefore, that I get of them from that is that actually they may be quite malnourished. They may be malnourished, obviously, because they've been living in poverty, perhaps. So they could be poor. We can also imply that they may be certain victims of society. They certainly were a family that perhaps weren't fed like others. They